I think that sometimes quitting or giving up on a dream is the victory if it's in alignment with what we know in our intuition to be the path we're supposed to be on.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. Just let go. We have Jamie Kern Lima on the show today, and she is something else. She's a self-made entrepreneur. She's a champion of women, and she's the co-founder of It Cosmetics, which is a company she started in her living room and then sold to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion. She became the first female CEO in L'Oreal's 100-plus year history. Jamie is on the Forbes richest self-made women's list, and she's an active investor as well. In this conversation with Jamie, she talks about that path, the early days of, when she didn't pay herself for the first 3 years, of the countless no's that she heard, and the tough, painful moments that we have as entrepreneurs. Jamie has a new book out called Believe It, which is so good. It's such a good read. I was fortunate to get an advance copy, and I'm sitting here looking at mine right now. There are sticky notes everywhere. There are highlights. It is good. And one of the things that Jamie does so well is she helps us see through her path and journey what is possible, because seeing is believing. And when we can spot others who are doing something, it just makes it that much more attainable. Couple of fun facts about Jamie. She was the first member of her family to attend college. And she also was a waitress at Denny's and bagged groceries at Safeway back in the day. And look at where she is now. Without further ado, here is Jamie. Jamie, welcome to the Why Not Now show. I am beyond jazzed to have you here with us. And in the spirit of Why Not Now, let's hop right in.
I'm so happy to be here, by the way. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, here we go. Likewise, I echo that sentiment. So can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now? And you went from idea to action, from dreaming to doing.
Yes. Well, one of the first big moments that comes to mind is when I made that jump from working in a job that I actually thought was my dream job to taking a big risk, launching a company, becoming an entrepreneur, and going into a space I knew nothing about and almost talked myself out of because my mind kept saying, you're not qualified. But my gut kept saying, you're supposed to take this jump. So to share a little bit about that moment and how I came to the conclusion of why not now. In that moment, I was, my whole life, ever since I was a little girl, I always would sit in my living room and watch Oprah every day. And I always thought, I love other people's stories. And I thought one day I'm going to grow up, I'm going to get a job, interviewing other people. I want to tell their stories. and share their stories with the world, just like you do. And that was like, oh, it was my dream job. And so, so fast forward a few decades, and I was working as a journalist, as a television news anchor, and thought I was in my dream job. And I went through this kind of season of what I thought was a big setback in my life. And that happened in the form of getting a skin condition. So I got a skin condition called rosacea. For me, it would show up all over my cheeks, still does to this day, all over my cheeks. Sometimes it would get really inflamed with bumps, and my cheeks would feel like sandpaper. And so what started happening is, I was anchoring the news, and I'd be live on television, anchoring the news, and I'd hear in my earpiece from the producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. Can you wipe it off? Could you wipe it? And they meant well. They were just trying to have my back on live TV. And I knew, oh, there's nothing I can wipe off. Like, this is the makeup breaking up, the redness coming through. So I started this whole, what I thought was a season of setbacks, meaning I learned from dermatologists there's no cure for it. And I started trying to find makeup that would work and couldn't. And I tried everything, the pro makeup artist stuff, the department store stuff, the drugstore, everything, nothing would work. And I kind of went through this season of self-doubt where I was, our inner critic is so much fun. And I would say things to myself like, am I going to lose my job? Are viewers going to turn the channel? Am I going to, all the things? And then I just started getting this gut feeling like, wait a minute, if you can't find anything that works for you, there must be so many other people out there that, are in the same boat and have just like given up on makeup altogether, whatever. And I had two things happen. I realized like, oh my gosh, my whole life seeing makeup ads, because I'm like, why doesn't anything work for me? There's thousands of products out there. And I realized, oh, my whole life seeing these beauty ads on TV or in the magazines, I've never seen a person with rosacea saying this works for me, right? I've only seen perfect skin. And I realized two things in that moment that made me really say, why not now? I realized, okay, if I ever can create a product that actually works for me, and I don't know how yet, right? I'm in this moment where I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm like, if I could do this and it works, and then I can create a company where I try to big picture, like shift something bigger than me, meaning, oh, instead of using models of perfect skin, what if I use, real people, every age and shape and size and skin tone and skin challenge, and try and call them beautiful models and mean it. And what if I can do that and literally help redefine beauty for every little girl out there who's about to see these ads and start doubting herself, and every grown person who still does. So it was like these big things coming at me in my gut. Yet I'm literally sitting there going, wait a minute, I have no money, because as a journalist, you don't make very much money. I have no money. I have no connections. I don't know anything about the beauty industry. And so my head, right? So many of us, probably so many of you in your community right now, listening to us right now, like we have moments in our life where in our gut, we're like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I need to take this jump. And we can listen to our gut, or we can listen to our head, right? And my head at the time was, Jamie, you're not qualified. You don't know anyone in beauty. You have no money, right? So it was this moment in life. And by the way, in my new book, Believe It, it's the first time I'm ever sharing all these stories where, including all the things I did wrong, like there's a million things I did wrong, and sharing them, if I can help save someone time or money or nights crying themselves to sleep, it's all worth it. A million things I've done wrong in the journey. But one of the things I did right was making that decision to hear my own intuition and to trust it. And so, and it was a big moment too, just to kind of add one more thing to the moment, where because I was in that job that my whole life I had envisioned happening, it was a really hard moment. It was a hard moment. And I had this realization that knowing when to let go of a dream is as important as knowing when to go after one. Mm-hmm. And I think the why not now that's so important is, and one thing we all have to get over is we're kind of raised in this culture of just don't quit, just don't give up, keep going, as if that's the recipe for success. And sometimes it is, but only when where you're going is in alignment with what you feel your calling is, your purpose, right? And I think that we can have a lot of those in our lifetime. And I think that sometimes quitting or giving up on a dream is the victory if it's in alignment with what we know in our intuition to be the path we're supposed to be on. So I took a huge risk and quit my job. On my honeymoon flight to South Africa, I wrote the business plan for It Cosmetics with my husband. And I didn't yet know then that it would be 3 years before I could pay myself, that it would be 3 years of every beauty retailer saying, no, you're not the right fit and this is never going to work. And I certainly didn't know, because right now, as we're speaking, literally in this very moment, which is so crazy, the company I started in my living room, It Cosmetics, is now the largest luxury makeup company in the country, right? But it was years of rejection and being told by all of the experts that you're not the right fit and this isn't going to work. And women won't buy makeup from images of models that are real people and all the things, right? So anyhow, I would say that why not now moment was big, because it came down to something we all face all the time, which is, do I listen to my gut or do I listen to my head?
That reconciliation and that process, you mentioned you thought you had your dream job, and you did at one point, right? And I hear this so often from people in this inflection point with their careers, with their lives, where I have it good. I've not only got it good, but this is what I wanted. I worked hard to get here, X, Y, Z, and climbed, and then it's okay to redream. Like, no one ever tells us, hey, you can redream. We sometimes have to level up our dreams. But I think about you in those moments, Jamie, where your mind is saying, I don't have the money, I don't have the experience, I don't have the XYZ. How did you bring positive energy to those situations and get up in the morning and get out of bed and say, you know what, I'm going to keep going. And it's not like, let's just make lemonade out of lemons. It was leveraging an adverse situation, right? So how did you bring positive energy to those moments?
So, I created an imaginary toolbox, which I'll talk about in a second, because I think anyone can do this. I think everyone can do this, and it's free. That really helped me. But I want to also say that I think it's a lifelong journey I think that no matter what's going on in our life, and I love that you're talking about this, because I think that, part of why I wrote this book is when you Google my story out there, all you ever see is like, oh, Denny's waitress builds $1 billion company. And I get so many DMs on Instagram from women saying like, oh, did you have a lot of connections or did you just get lucky? And what I realize is when we don't share this kind of stuff, when we don't dissect the moments and share what we really went through, people feel alone in their own struggles and their own setbacks or their own self-doubt or their own insecurities. And, my story really is a story of a girl who went from not trusting herself to learning how and not believing in herself to believing in herself. And I think it's a story of so many people out there right now on their own journey, right, of trying to do that. And so even to this day, Miss Amy Jo Martin, even to this day, I struggle. Every day, it's a struggle to go, okay, let me pull out these tools from the toolbox. Let me, all those things. And so, how I learned and just to give an example, because when we start a new dream and when we start a new idea, it's easier then because we're so excited and we don't know what we don't know yet and all the things, right? But then when we start going through seasons of, like in my situation, when it became week after week after month after year of hearing from all of these people I put on a pedestal, right? Like I loved, when I was a Denny's waitress, I would save my tip money to buy a MAC lipstick or Lancome eyeliner in all the fancy department stores. And that was a big deal for me. And so I really valued the idea of would these department stores carry my makeup line, and would Sephora and Ulta and QVC? So I had them on this pedestal as experts and visionaries. So when I started sending them my products, and it was unanimous across the board, no, your packaging's not nice enough. You're not the right fit. We don't think that customers will buy beauty from images that are actually attainable. because it had never really been done before. And when you aren't seeing, when you're hearing everyone else doubt you, it's really hard not to let that translate into doubt in our own heads about our dream, about our vision. And those are the moments I think that, when we really need to call upon things. And I mean, for me, I call it my imaginary toolbox. And I think that it can be, and it's different for everybody. So in your community right now, people listening, it may not be experts not believing them. It might be their inner circle of friends and family who they love, who have good intentions, just like not getting it, that they want to quit their job or that they want to take a chance, right? It could be their own self-doubt. That's that barrier getting in the way. It could just be that there's no traction in their business yet. And they're like, am I wrong, right? And so, for me, I went through this 3-year season of all of those things kind of happening at the same time. My business wasn't getting traction. And every time I would check in with my gut and say, was my gut wrong? This isn't working. I kept getting that feeling I'm supposed to keep going. Every time the experts would say no, I mean, there's stories I share for the first time ever in Believe It that you've read now, because I see you have it all tabbed. I'm like,
everywhere, yes.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Being able to design my own day and do it in the most efficient way is a non-negotiable for me. I'm a bit of a time management nerd, so when I find something that allows me to be more efficient and effective to get the most out of my day, I want to share it with everyone. I want you to head to monday.com/AJM, because here's the scoop. I have a new tool in my productivity tool belt, and it's called Monday. Monday.com. My team and I have never felt more organized, professionally and personally. And my to-do list is no longer the boss of me. I feel more in control because every project, initiative, date, task, they're all captured and organized in one place. And my team is in the loop and involved every step of the way. Monday.com/AJM is where you can find your brand new operating system. Everything has its own home, deadline. You can see the team members associated with the tasks, and it's even color coordinated, so you can easily navigate your own task list. It's amazing. So we all have multifaceted jobs, businesses, and lives. With Monday, you're able to keep all of these components organized in their own compartments. But you're also only one click away from seeing the big picture and how they all integrate together. Creating systems and procedures within your day in business saves a lot of time. For example, my team and I have a dedicated board for this very podcast. Did you know there are 28 steps involved in getting one podcast just to air? It's the same exact process every time, and it's a system. And we have the various key steps mapped out, and they're set up as tasks on our podcast board. And this allows for my team and I to stay in lockstep every step of the way. I've even noticed a decrease in emails and meetings since we started using Monday. So you can head to monday.com/AJM and check out how I use it. One feature I love is that my social media content calendar is built inside of monday.com. I finally have one that I actually use. I like it, and it's embedded into my overall calendar as well. Another feature we use every day is the Google Doc integration. You know, I love a good spreadsheet. I can pull them into monday.com and edit them right there versus having 97 tabs open on my computer. If how we spend our days is how we spend our lives, then I can't think of anything more important than using the time in our days wisely. Head to monday.com/AJM to start your free trial today. That's monday.com/AJM, which is short for Amy Jo Martin, if that's how you need to remember it. And you'll see how I use it, what's in it for you, and that's where you get your free trial. So if you start using Monday, hit me up on social media. Let me know how you're using it, what your experience is like, and we can swap tips and tricks. I wish I had started using it sooner. real quick, I just had this thought when you were saying, we've said the term, fake it till you make it. And I always say fake it till you become it. But it's really seeing is believing, right? And what you're doing now by sharing your story and a look under the hood, it wasn't like you went from Denny's, the first person in your family to go to college, and then $1.2 billion exit. There's this whole backstory, this undercurrent of, let me tell you really, but that's how we get to believe it, is because we see it, right? And so, don't fake it till you make it, just believe it and become it.
Believe it and become it. I love that you share that, because sometimes, and I've had this happen for me, like even watching Oprah growing up, like her sharing the stuff that she went through helped me feel like, oh, where I come from doesn't determine where I'm going. And like I think when we share these stories and we see other examples of what's possible, we're better able to believe it's possible for ourselves. And, it was, there's stuff I share and believe it. Like I'd say 95% of it I've never shared before. And a lot of it's embarrassing. A lot of it is hurtful. There's a lot of seasons of rejection in all different forms, personally, professionally. But at the end of the day, I do believe that. Like, I think when we really, I think you said lift up the hood, right? Is that what you said? And
look under the hood.
Look under the hood. Then we know we're not alone. And we're like, oh, you know what? I just got rejected today, but it's okay, because you know what? This comes with the territory. Or like we're better able to realize that it's not personal and it's part of the journey. And so for me, this was a continual thing. And when, there was one moment in particular, just to share, when I just knew in my gut we're supposed to be on QVC, which is a live television channel broadcast to 100 million homes. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, if I can, because I've seen all these Photoshopped ads my whole life, if I could get on QVC and show my product and prove that it works live, you can't Photoshop live TV. I'm sure they'll invent that one day. But right now, you can't Photoshop live TV. I'm like, let me prove this actually works and show it on women of all different, ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges. And I just knew. And yet for 3 years, when I would reach out to QVC and send products, they'd always say no. And I think this is an important thing to point out, because our ability to get still, and I believe we all have a knowing, and I believe our gut is always more powerful than anyone else's advice. Mm-hmm. But I think because of the things that you and I are talking about now, we almost unlearn how to hear our own internal knowing. And I think we start to second guess ourselves. And in this 3-year journey, for example, I would send our products to QVC, and I remember this night, this was 3 years in, I finally got a phone call with the head guy, Alan Burke, who is like a legend in the beauty industry. And I just thought, oh my gosh, if he's going to take his precious time to hop on a call with me, like it's going to be a yes, we're finally going to get our shot. And I was so excited and freaking out at the same time. And I remember, and we were down to no money, by the way. We were doing about 2 to 3 orders a day on our website and just barely keeping the lights on, not paying ourselves. And when I finally got him on the phone, I was like trying to be, channel all the self-confidence of how they'll be lucky to have us. And I remember he was on the phone and he's like, hello, Jamie, this is Alan Burke from QVC. And I'm like, Alan, hello, so great. Trying to all that. And then I remember he got really quickly to the point. And I thought my life was going to be changed that day. And he said, we've reviewed your products with all the buyers again, unanimously, and it's a no. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers, but I wish you all the best. And of course, I went right back into pitching him again. I'm like, oh, but Alan, I am the right fit. And like on and on and on and on and on. And he's like, he thanked me for loving QVC, but it was a no. And I remember as he's saying these words to me, like tears are streaming down my face, because I don't know how we're going to stay in business. And that night, I cried myself to sleep, woke up the next morning, hoping it had been a dream. And then I don't know if you ever got bad news, and then you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, it wasn't a dream, right? And went through that 3 days in a row. And that was the moment, one of many moments where I pulled from my own imaginary toolbox that I pull from when I need to be reminded of who I am, of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I keep it mostly in my head, but I have a notes section on my phone, and I basically keep quotes that inspire me, underdog stories that inspire me, my why beneath my why, which I talk a lot about that in the book as well, because a lot of people just create a why and it sounds really good for their company or their mission, but it's often, it sounds good to other people, but it's often not deep enough and not meaningful enough on a super deep level to keep you going when you keep getting knocked down. And, you know, I pulled from that, and every time, even though Alan Burke was saying no and then not the right fit, I would check in with that, and I just had this knowing that I was supposed to keep going. And I think some of the most key moments in life, the moments where we decide why not now, are the moments where we don't let all of the noise of other people's opinions and rejections and self-doubt and our families worried for us and all the stuff. We don't confuse that with our own truth. And I think it's so easy to stay in our comfort zones, which comes at the price, I think, of chipping away at our soul. But when we do that, when we don't follow our own knowing, I think we risk like talking ourselves out of our own truth and literally not becoming the person we're born to be. And when I look back at the commonality of, you know, a lot of the biggest mistakes I made came down to when I doubted myself and I trusted something that didn't feel right in my own knowing, right? And a lot of times experts have advice. It's so helpful. It is a gift. But check in with your own knowing. Is it right for you, you know? And when it doesn't feel that way, sticking with your truth can change your whole life. You know, we went on to build the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment, to this day. And the story of how I got a yes and how that all went down was one of the biggest life lessons I've ever had. But I ended up doing over 1,000 shows on QVC, and the brand right now is their biggest beauty brand. And Alan Burke ended up becoming an amazing friend once we launched on QVC, one of my greatest mentors in my whole life. And, you know, not to give up like way too much, because, you know, in the book, it's obviously 80,000 words that goes really deep on the granularity of all these stories and how to turn no's into yeses and how to stay resilient through them. But Alan Burke, he retired from QVC, and we ended up hiring him in a paid position on our advisory board at Cosmetics. So it was this divine full circle life moment where I realized the man who rejected me, who said, "You're not the right fit for us," was now working for me. Yeah. And a great force for good in my life. And I just think that, you know, when we don't take rejection personally and when we just keep following and trusting our knowing, that's when these big full circle life moments can happen that maybe don't make sense at the time.
Oh, huge. I think you mentioned your toolbox too. And I look at, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as, you know, a lot of different colorful places in my path. But I always, in the women that I work with, I say, you know, being an entrepreneur is kind of like the Chicago weather. If you don't like how your day is going, just wait 15 minutes, right? It is so up and down. So if we don't have Bibles like this, where I had a day literally yesterday where on the outside it looked great, but things were, you know, so it used to be Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, and now you've replaced my go-to, right? We have to it's so important for people to read this book, because everything fancy and impressive has never started that way. And oftentimes those headlines, like you said, Denny's to $1.2 billion exit, sometimes that's almost less relatable, because it's like, yeah, but that's not me. That's an anomaly. That's, you know, so we need this to dive into as our toolbox too. So thank you for creating this. And proceeds 100% go to Together Rising, which our friend Glennon Doyle, who's been on this show, heads up, as well as Feed America, right? Yeah, 100%, Jamie. 100%. That's amazing.
Literally, I just know it fills my soul. And I know you're the same way, that when everything I've gone through can somehow be used by someone else and their own journey to learning how to believe in themselves and trust themselves and go from doubting they're enough to knowing they're enough. And just, I think we're all on this journey, really a lifelong journey of breaking through that barrier of self-doubt and not trying to be something we're not, or not trying, but like, how do we step into all of who we are? You know what I mean? And you mentioned earlier the idea of, so many people in the community listening right now are in a great spot. And they're like, but why am I not fulfilled? And, I talk about so much in this book, but one of the things I talked about was this experience I was so surprised to go through in my 30s with Mean Girls. It was this whole experience I talk about. And I had a big life lesson that came out of it. But, I realized, sometimes when you are succeeding all of a sudden, not everyone around you is going to like it. And all of a sudden fear takes over for them and they see what you're doing through the lens of their own fear. And I went through this journey where, some people that I thought were my friends, weren't so happy when I was doing well. And it was really hurtful. It turned into bullying, all kinds of stuff. And I want to share it because if anyone else out there is having a friendship that doesn't feel so good for their soul or kind of feels like someone isn't rooting for them, I talk about how I navigated that and how I came out on the other side. And one of the big realizations I had in that, which I think might connect to a whole lot of people listening right now, if they're even in a great space, but they feel like, something's missing. I had this big realization that we're not here. I don't believe we're here on this earth to compete with anybody else. Like, I believe the only person we're here to compete with is the person we know inside that we're born capable of becoming. And I think that when we're not, and I know for me personally, I'm not there yet. And I think there's probably so many people right now that are going, gosh, I feel like I have, and listen, there's a lot of people really struggling right now and really have gone through a tough year. And there's other people who say, oh, I'm in a great job and I have all the things. Why am I not fulfilled? And I think it's because they have a bigger calling on their life. And we all kind of know deep down inside, I am capable of creating more or giving more or sharing more. And it doesn't need to be, let me quit my job and be an entrepreneur. It could also be as simple as like, I need to start painting again. I need to start, you know what I mean? And I need to write my story for the first time. I need to launch the podcast, the things like that, right? We all have that knowing. And I think we're all on that journey of realizing, because I think whatever anyone else is doing around you is just, it's great and cheer them on, but I think it's irrelevant to your own thing. Yeah. But we can let it be a distraction and comparison syndrome and then talk us out of us even starting our own thing. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I was in a Clubhouse. I was on a panel yesterday on Clubhouse and someone referred to democratizing abundance. And I just loved that because there is plenty of space. There's, I think what's fascinating about this time that we're in is that innovation just creates more in a lot of ways. But I agree with you with that. I think it's, who was it? Teddy Roosevelt that said, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think comparison and that competitiveness can be best friends, and maybe DNA is the similar. So it's especially on social. And there are some things that I pointed out. We probably don't have time. I'll put this in the intro, but some of the quotes that you have in your books, just amazing. And I have a couple of quick rapid fire questions if you're down for it.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you founder, CEO of a very large company that obviously was acquired. You are doing a lot. You're a mom. I love your videos on Instagram, by the way, like when you did the book signing, like celebration or your book deal celebration was so cool. How do you manage your day and your time? Like, what's your top productivity tip?
Realizing that I believe balance is a lie. And I believe that when we try to do everything in balance, it just makes us feel guilty and like we're failing all the time. And so I try to be really intentional about what I'm focused on and try to be really present. And it's tough. I mean, the truth is, and I go into this too, I go into a lot of the not fun stuff in my book. I talk about becoming addicted to work. And I realized doing 100-hour weeks for like 10 years, which I don't think you need to do to build a $1 billion company. I realized I actually was addicted to work, which, by the way, is like any other addiction. Busyness is like any other addiction in the sense of it's numbing, right? It can separate us from ourselves. And still to this day, there are moments I would rather work than be with my family who I tried for 10 years to conceive. Do you know what I mean? And I have to catch myself and go back to that. And so what I do my best, and I fail at this almost every day, but it is a journey. I do my best at just trying to be really intentional, like having the blessing of sharing this time and space with you and your community right now. Like I'm so in it. You know what I mean? And I try to really not for a second think about anything else going on or the big, huge to-do list or anything else. And I try to do the same thing now with my family. And I failed at that for a number of years. But, if I have, 30 minutes where we're going to watch Sesame Street and dance like Elmo, I am all in with my daughter. You know what I mean? The best that I can. And I still feel myself pulled to my phone, pulled to, how many people, all this stuff, right? Where the big book launch is now. And I'm like, oh, I want to bless so many people and donate so much money. It's like the business side of me at every second of my life wants to be on top of that. But I also know it comes at the price of, I lived this for 10 years. It came at the price of joy and fulfillment. So I'm in the midst of a journey right now of a work in progress of really unlearning some of the things I became addicted to and being way more intentional about balancing my own achiever instincts and realizing that with the achieverness, which a lot of entrepreneurs have, right? We feel we're constantly striving with ambition and things we want to achieve, but it's also almost never enough. And there's never a point at which you're like, oh, I'm fulfilled now. And so I've learned these lessons, and I talk a lot about this and believe it also, that I got to the point, I've never shared this before, right? We built to over 1,000 employees and I never spoke about these things. But I got to a point where even when my own husband would call my phone, because we worked together, I actually, when I'd see his name on my cell phone, I thought of it as a work call. And I was like, oh, I've got to make some changes here, right? So for anyone out there who's maybe started a dream or a business with a friend or a family member or a partner, these are all real things that we have to navigate and sometimes unlearn in a lot of ways. And so, this was rapid fire, right? I'm like, let me just tell you about it for 10 hours.
No.
There's so much
I literally am like, oh, I've my other sticky note. That's okay. No, that's huge. As someone who works with their spouse, and that's becoming more and more normal too, by the way. But just your kind of meta point about power being in the present moment. Okay, last question, and I promised you I'd give you a couple minutes because I know you've got something on the other side of this, and I like 2 or 3 moments before I flip right back in. So I want to give that to you. If you were to go back to that moment where you get the phone call and you're rejected from QVC, that one, what you thought have been maybe the last time, little did you know, what would you say to Jamie in that moment after you hung up the phone, knowing what you know now?
I would say in that moment, I did things right, even though it was hard. So I would say, good job, girl. You turned down the volume on the noise of everyone else, and you turned up the volume on your own gut, and you made the decision to trust yourself. And you're about to see how that will change your entire life.
Oh, literally tearing up over here. Oh, Jamie, thank you so much. I can't wait to connect with you again at some point. This is such a gift, and you are too. And I appreciate the important work that you're doing. Thank you. And enjoy the rest of your day.
So every word you said applies to you completely, which is so often how life works, right? We see what we are, right? And so thank you for acknowledging that. And I see all of those things in you. And I'm just super honored to spend this time with you and your community. And I'm always here for you too, to champion you however I can. And that would be an honor. And so I just want to say thank you. And thank you for sharing Believe It with your whole community. It's the best work I've ever done in my life. And I'm just super, super honored. And we're doing a big launch celebration. And I'm just grateful to share it with you.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?